Hi there, my name's Tom Russell, and I'm sitting here with an old friend of mine, Paul Logue, from the band Eden's Curse. Eden's Curse are, this year, 2016, celebrating their 10th anniversary. It just seems like yesterday they started, and we've got some questions we're going to ask Paul, and just see what he has to say about Eden's Curse. And we'll start off with the 16th of January 2006. Paul, tell us exactly how you put the band together.
Very, very quickly and concisely, as best as I can. Essentially, Eden's Curse came from my need to find something with my music. I was writing some songs with other artists in Germany, particularly David Riedman and Dennis Ward, and I'd been in a Glasgow band for quite some time, maybe the best part of 10 years. And kind of moved on. That didn't really go anywhere. So I got to a point where I got married and was in a situation where I was sitting at home writing all these songs, sending them out to artists. People were coming back and recording vocals on it, and I started to get a lot of encouragement from those guys I was working with, and they were saying, you should really do something with your material. So that kind of planted the seed in my head, and because of my situation, I've been newly married. My wife had moved from a faraway town, and we were still settling into our new house. I thought, well, I'd rather do something from home to start with as some form of musical project. So I went to the internet. melodicrock.com was a website that I used to go into a lot, and started looking through the message boards and found a singer who can really sing, I believe was the post, and I thought, I'll see about that, and emailed the guy off. That was Mike Aladin, and that was the day I got a reply back from Mike, and we exchanged a few shorts and said, okay, neither of us are going to get cash rich here if we're going to play the type of music that we want to play, but why don't we give it a shot? And that was it. That was the starting point, and it just went from there.
What were the other guys in the band? It would have been very easy to form a band round about Glasgow, the west of Scotland. Yep. But you didn't do it that way.
No.
How did you meet the other guys in the band?
Yeah, well, again, from the same kind of route, Michael and I had basically said that, okay, we need a band. We can't do this all ourselves. We need a guitar player. We need a drummer, etc., etc. We were quite keen on a keyboard player. So we said, well, why don't we put an advert out? And that's what we did. We, using the same website, melodicrock.com, we've been good friends with Andrew McNeese that runs it for years, and just came up with some generic email address and said we were a group looking to start a Queensryche stroke Dokken type band. Put our influences on there, a couple more like Scorpions, Malmsteen, that kind of thing. And lo and behold, we started to get adverts in for guitar players. I think in total we got about 60 applications, and that was quite a task going through all of those and trying to find. I knew in my head, I think, which was the most important part, what I was looking for. I knew that when I heard it, I would know it. I knew if I saw it, okay, that might be something I could work with. And a lot of the guys that came in either didn't look the part or they didn't sound the part. But Thorsten, when he arrived, I thought, that's exactly, he looks the part and he sounds the part, and that was an easy decision to make. And then it's just talking to the guy and finding out what he's like as a person, because that's important, if you're going to get involved in a project. The rest of the chaps, Pete, I was in a same label with him, with my old band from Glasgow, Cry Havoc. He was in a band called The Shock, so I knew Pete, and I asked him, you doing anything? He said, nope. I said, I've got something that might interest you. He jumped on straight away. And the same guy, Karsten Schulz, who brought Thorsten to the table, Karsten responded on behalf of Thorsten. He recommended Ferdy Dürnberg from Axel Rudy Pearl, and we emailed Ferdy, and that was it. So within, I think, 6 months, we had the line up in place by about June from that year.
I remember the first time I saw you with Thorsten on guitar, and I was knocked out. I thought, that guy is something special. Yeah. He really is, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt whatsoever that we found a special talent. He's a special human being as well. I mean, I love him to bits. He's just such a nice guy, and he's great to work with. An amazingly talented musician. But even to this day, 10 years later, every time I walk into a rehearsal room, you know, my breath has never failed to be taken away with how good this guy is. And I remember his audition was a straight ahead kind of hard rock tune that he sent, and it sounded fabulous. It had the great sound, all the chops and techniques. But when we got into doing the album, that's when I started to realise, hang on a minute, I've really got something special with this guy. I mean, he could play anything, and he could shred on an acoustic guitar, and there's no many people that can do that. He can play Spanish stuff, and again, upside down strung left. So there's times when you're in rehearsal, you know, if I'm writing the songs and I'm looking at the chords that he's playing back, and I'm going, what on earth is that? And of course it's just upside down. But unbelievable guitar player. In my opinion, one of the best in hard rock and metal around now, and I really mean that.
A question, Paul, that you must have been asked 100 times, if not 1,000 times, but I'm going to ask it because of the fact that this is the 10th anniversary, and there's some people out there just getting into Eden's Curse. Where did the name come from?
Again, you know, when you're trying to form a band, you want it to sound, if you're rock, you want it to sound rock and metalish. We threw certain words into, you know, on an email between each other, and it was just a case of finding things that sparked an interest. So one of the names, I think, was Silent Eden, was one of the names that we thought, okay, we don't like the silent, but the Eden part's quite cool. And we just started looking around for that. I found it on Amazon. I think it was some form of nudie book. It was some kind of romantic Boons and what was it, Boons novel? Mills and Boons, that's the one. And it was a novel called Eden's Curse. And I thought, that's perfect. It just, you know, it's got that nasty element, that rocky part to it. And again, that kind of spawned in my head, okay, with the whole Garden of Eden thing, you know, of all of the artwork, we could probably do something quite creative with that, and try and build not just a band but also a little bit of a brand image. You know, when I think back of what I loved when I was growing up listening to you on the radio was things like Maiden, and looking forward to buying a Maiden album and seeing the artwork on it. And although we don't quite have Eddie, you know, Eve's boobs are bigger than Eddie's. We do have our own kind of character there and certainly style. I think when you see an Eden's Curse album cover, you begin to know that style after a while.
Is it a true story that the first time the entire band, you all met each other, was on that very first photo shoot for the first album?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, Michael and myself, we had gone to Germany. We were working with our producer, who's still our producer to this day, Dennis Ward, in his studio. So Mike and I met the day before we started recording in Germany. So we had 2 hours of drinking beer together and meeting each other, but countless emails and Skypes with all the guys, but it's never the same as meeting in person. So the actual truth in that is correct. You know, when we, all 5 of us together, the first time was that photo shoot for the album. Yeah, weird. And it's mental to think back that we did a record like that and it was in the can at that point.
2 of the key people certainly in the early days of Eden's Curse was the producer Dennis Ward, who you're still involved with, and the other one was the graphic artist Thomas. Tell us, just looking back, how key were they to the initial success? Yeah,
I think, you know, I hold them very in high regards. Both of them, I still work with them to this day, as you said, and those guys came on board when we had nothing. We had no record deal, we had very little in our pockets in terms of finance to pay it, but they believed in us, and they believed in what we were doing, they believed in our music, and essentially, I mean, I can't obviously discuss some of the finer nature of the deals, but some of these guys gave us, you know, almost work for free, put it that way, to get a foot in the door, and they were confident enough that this group would be signed, and lo and behold, it all came true. And I remember, I'll give you a good anecdote, that I mean, Dennis had pretty much said to us, listen, if you don't get signed, you don't need to pay me for the mix. And I thought, well, wait a minute, did I hear that right? And he said, yeah. And I said to him, well, what happens if we don't get signed? Can I still walk out here with a CD with your mix? Sure. And I just couldn't get over that. And I thought, what unbelievable kindness. And he believed in the product so much. He says, you'll get signed, no problem. And I'm glad he was as confident, because I wasn't. And but one thing that we did do is when we did our first album with AFM, they signed us up on a newer, bigger contract with big budget, etc. First thing I did was, when we arrived back to Germany to go and record with Dennis, I came in with a large envelope full of euros and paid him in full for his full mix up front, which he almost had a heart attack about, because he said, my tax man will kill me. So, there was me thinking I was doing something good. He was going, what the hell am I going to do with this? But it was my way of saying, listen, thank you, you gave us a lot, we want to try and give you something back. So I was telling him to stuff it under his bed,
That initial deal in 2007 was with a German record label. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was just a case of when we finished the album, we mixed it right up to the point of mixing and mastering it with Dennis. We started to send it out to record labels, and AFM were without doubt one of the labels that we wanted to be involved with. I think at the time they had Ed Guy, they had Avantasia, they had Udo from Accept, they still had Dora Pesh. So we thought, in terms of rock and metal in Europe, there's not a lot in the UK kind of big labels, apart from maybe the Roadrunners, etc. But that was somebody that we wanted to be involved with. We liked what they were doing, and the initial conversations we had with them were very positive, and it was a case of coming back to them with a finished product. And we did a deal after maybe a few months of negotiations. But they've been behind us since the first day, and we're still with them. We negotiate a new contract every few years, and we're so happy to be there still to this day.
That first album, which territories did it come out in? Which territories did it do well in? And roughly how many copies did you sell?
I think in total, to answer your last question, it sold about 10,000. So it did very well in Europe, and it charted in Japan. I remember the first sales figures from the Japanese guys come in around about 525, which they weren't too excited about. And then Burn magazine came out 2 weeks later, and it had a huge rating, and we had an interview in it, and I think they sold about 5,000 the next week. It was staggering. We were going, wow. And that was, at that point you're starting to think to yourself, something exciting's happening here that we just didn't expect.
Moving to 2008, the band's now been together a couple of years, and you released your second album. How did you manage to turn it around so quickly?
Yeah, well, that's, for me, when I was writing the record at the time, I'd mentioned that, my wife we'd moved to a new area and settling into a new life. My wife had become pregnant as well, so I kind of sensed what was coming. I started to feel good about the material and where the album was heading, the debut album I'm talking about. So I didn't stop writing, and effectively I had the second one in the can, and with the success of the first one, the label said to us quite quickly, really pleased with this, guys, we should think about a new album. And I pretty much said, well, we're ready when you are. So we had deliberately got ahead of the game so that if I could take a year out with my family and a new baby arriving in the scene, let's just get the work done beforehand, and that's what we did. And arguably, I think that record is even better as well. In my opinion, there was a lot more stronger material. We were becoming to find ourselves, and a really important record for us.
That album spawned the band's first hit single, not a massive hit single, but a hit single. And it was interesting because it featured a duet with Pamela Moore, who was probably best known as Sister Mary from Operation Mindcrime. How did that come about?
Yeah, Pamela's a sweetheart, actually. She's a lovely lady. And again, just in selling points as a new band, to try and stick your head up above the parapet and stand out from the crowd. We wanted to try, and we still want to try and experiment and do different things. And we felt a song like Angels and Demons could have light and shade to it by putting a female voice. So we all, Mike and I sat down at the time and we thought about voices who could fit, and one of the first names was about Sister Mary. We're huge Queensryche fans. I'm wearing the t-shirt today, one of my favourite bands, and we immediately said, yeah, let's try it. And in a case at that point in time, you're trying to get a hold of the people. How can we reach out? And I don't think Facebook was quite around then, but MySpace was, official websites were, and an email went off to Pam, and she was totally up for it, loved what she heard from the demo, which is always a worry because it's my voice on the demos, and I usually think people would run a mile, but we assured her, here's what we did in the first album, so there's a professional group behind it, this is the standards we're going to try and achieve. And she just delivered in spades. She was an absolute joy to work with. Although it's a funny story about Pamela, we did a little video as well to coincide with the single, and I asked, would you mind shooting some footage, and she shot footage with a team over in the States. And I said to Pamela, now when you're sending the package to me, just mark it as a gift, so don't put anything on it or I pay customs. Now she put on it, it wasn't a gift, it was work, and she put on it the value of the video production. So I got a bill for about 60 quid from the customs people to be able to accept it. So, but I mean, it gives you something to laugh about, it was hilarious at the time.
That second album did have any other guests? Yeah,
we did. Doogie White, who's now with Michael Schenker, Rainbow, Yngwie Malmsteen's a good friend of ours. Doogie sung some backing vocals in the first album. Again, he said, I'll come along and do some BVs for you, which he did. And Tony Harnell from TNT, Skid Row. Tony's an incredible singer. He was a joy to work with, actually, Tony. And from a technical aspect, his files when we were getting them through were so professional, and if you listen to songs like Sail On and some of the verses, some of the harmonies that he's singing along with Mike were phenomenal, very good.
Moving into 2009, you at long last got the band together. It must have been quite a difficult job getting everybody together to tour, but it was as part of a three-band bill. Stradivarius were headlining, and Gus G, Ozzy Osbourne's then guitarist. Was that, as a tour, did that bring you to more fans, to more public attention? Yeah,
I mean, I think for us, touring was key. I think even if you go back to some of the first interviews I did with you, it was a lot of the questioning was around, is this band going to tour? We had no idea how we were going to manage that, but through positive kind of thinking and aspects, and just maintaining a good belief that we would get there, then opportunities arise, and that opportunity arose. And luckily our American record label, Ryan Northrop, our president of Metal Mayhem Music, so we were on them in the States, paid for that whole tour for us. And without Ryan doing that, I don't know if Eden's Curse would ever been out playing live. It was such a crucial, pivotal gesture on his behalf. He believed in the group, and it was something that we just grabbed with both hands, and we went out there and played great music every night and good shows, and a lot of people hadn't heard us, but it gave us an opportunity to get in front of people and impress, and we took it with both hands.
I remember you telling me how well your t-shirts sold in that first tour, and you were astonished.
Absolutely. In fact, the guy from Stradivarius was up to all sorts of tricks to make sure we couldn't sell at the same price and everything, so we definitely upset a few people in terms of the merchandise, not certainly the touring parties, but we had, again, good designs, and in my opinion better designs than the other two bands on the bill, and that was easy. But we also worked it as a new band. We're an approachable band, so at the end of each show we come out, we do like to meet the fan base, because being a digital internet band, there's many parts you wonder if those fans are actually real, so you go out there and get a chance to shake, oh, you're such and such from Wakefield, oh, okay, right, cool, and it's great, we love doing that, and we will continue to do that for as long as we possibly can, and I think people love that about us, and I love that. It's a huge part of doing this, For me, getting a chance to meet those people in public and thank them for their support, and that worked for us every night. We were out after we played, we were out at the end of each show, and you could physically see people coming to buy a Stratovarius t-shirt and going, oh, who's that over there? And okay, it's not anybody, it's not Gus G, but they came, oh, that's the band, right? I'll buy the CD, I'll get it signed, I'll buy a t-shirt. And we've stuck to that to this day.
Every band, every tour, there's always at least one amusing story. Quite often the bands will keep them to themselves and not tell you the story. But what about that first tour? Any good memories, and amusing wise?
Yeah, well, London's where it all happened, baby. We had Mike Exley, our promo guy for AFM. He's the UK guy for AFM. Mike organises all the interviews that we do on tour. So Michael Eden and myself knew that when we arrived in London, we were being whisked off, unfortunately not in a limousine, but in the back of a cab or something, somewhere across London for an interview with, I shan't name the radio station, they're still going, but one of the biggies. It was an interview on air. And when we turned up into the offices, we actually went on the subway, which was a bit strange. I think the traffic at that time of the afternoon, Mike had said, let's go to the subway. So we jump on the tube, we get off Denmark Street or something, we're there in the office, and the guy who's interviewing us is sitting drinking a can of Stella, and I'm thinking, that's not a bad gig, that is, sitting drinking Stella in the afternoon. So we sat down in the studio, and he finished his track, and he said, I'll bring you on in a second. And we're just kind of looking at each other, not knowing what's going to happen, and he hits the mic live and he says something along the lines of, okay guys, welcome to such and such station, live on air. We've got, gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves? And I said, why don't you introduce us for you? He's going, why don't you do it? And I'm going, okay, I can smell a rat here. And I say, we're Eden's Curse, okay, and when's your next gig in London? And I looks at my watch and says, in about 2 hours time. Oh, you're playing tonight? So he hadn't a clue who we were and why we were there. And I'm looking at the PR guy, and he's dying in the corner. And he says, okay, so we're just going to go to a quick track. Who's your favourite band? And Mike said Zeppelin. So he played Zeppelin. And he said, right, we'll line up your new single. What's your single? He said, right, what about Masquerade Ball from the album? And he came back on again, more daft questions. He knew none of the answers or whatever, but he said, okay, this is going to be the new single from Eden's Curse. You'll see them playing tonight somewhere in London. And he hit play, and it was Pearl Jam. And at that point I just said to Mike, I says, right, get us out of here. And Mike was a bit put out, and he says, right, I'll just get you a cab back to the venue. And the story doesn't finish there, the best bit comes. So we get back, Islington O2 Academy. I'm up the stairs, coming in the door, and in the middle of the dance floor or the main hall is a large man, bald head, texting his mobile phone. So as I'm running by him, I flick my heel up and smack him in the arse. Because I think it's my keyboard player, and as my foot connects his arse, I see my keyboard player on the stage plugging in a cable, and my face is like, and the guy texting's like, and he turns round, and I just said, sorry mate, I thought you were him. And he looked over at the keyboard player and suddenly got the joke, and actually was very cool about it. But that was my day.
Still in 2009, Paul, we had a change of keyboard player and a big gig, the Bloodstock Festival, first time.
Yeah, Ferdy had left the band at that point. Again, amazing keyboard player. Just personality-wise, I think as you get to go out on the road, this was all new to Eden's Curse, that going on the road is when you're living in each other's pockets, and it's, that just comes with the territory. Some people work and some people don't, and Ferdy was an amazing talent, and his contribution to the two first records was stunning, still is to this day. But we decided to part company and brought in Alessandro Del Vecchio, who's was a great keyboard player for us, great person, loved him being in the band, amazing singer as well as a keyboard player, so he brought an awful lot to the table.
He was Italian, wasn't he?
Yes, that's right, yep, from kind of near Milan, so his first show was Bloodstock, and that, in the whole 10-year kind of career that we've had together, that was a kind of humbling moment, because we were the last band on before Europe who closed the festival for the weekend, so we had the entire festival to ourselves really. We were in the Sophie Lancaster stage, so we headlined that, and I remember thinking, my God, this marquee's quite big, will anybody turn up? And when we came out on stage, I noticed like the first 4 or 5 rows were all Eden's Curse t-shirts, so that was a kind of penny dropping moment for you. And you're thinking, oh, okay, so something is happening here. And, I run the shop from my home, so I'm thinking, I don't know that guy, but I must have sold you a t-shirt. So, and that's a nice thing, it makes it worthwhile and makes all the hard work that people don't see in the background, for me anyway, it makes it worthwhile.
And did the marquee fill up okay?
Yeah, it was absolutely packed, yeah. It was a really good gig. We played great. The sound was abysmal on stage, and I would still say to this day the worst I've ever experienced in my professional career. It was like all the monitors were on 12, It was, that wasn't a pleasant experience, but it was a good show. We had a good time, and the people in front of us went away happy, and that's what counts really.
Towards the end of that year, you went out on tour again in the UK, sandwiched between two different sort of bands.
Yep.
A bit of pirate metal and a bit of really, really heavy metal.
Yeah, it was an interesting tour for sure. I mean, I think we were on the same kind of management, all three of us at that time, so that's why that made sense from that capacity. It gave us a chance to play in front of a different audience, and as a new band to really new to touring, it was just a question of getting the band road ready. So most of the venues, I would say, were pretty well attended. We had some very memorable shows on that tour. Glasgow for us, I remember standing next to Big Duncan from Triple G when Hailstorm were on, and he said to me, a lot of people left after you finished, so you've definitely got your own crowd here. So it was nice to hear things from people at Duncan. But great show for us. Glasgow was awesome. Nottingham was wild. Sheffield was out of this world. First show I've ever been to where there's a circle and a pirate sword fight in the middle of it. That was a highlight. We even get an encore at Sheffield. So it was just a good tour for getting the band road ready, and I really think I don't think we'd ever sounded better at that point in our career with Alessandro, the harmonies that we were all doing together. It was really beginning to click.
Moving to 2010, a slightly quieter year for the band, but you did go over to America for the first time and played a show with Y&T.
That's right, we did Melodic Rock Fest 2 in Chicago. It wasn't a quiet year for us because in the background we were writing and recording Trinity, so we obviously didn't want to take on too many commitments. But yeah, that show, there was big plans with that show. That was meant to be a DVD and a live album recording through our US label, but Mr. Delvecchio got denied access to the US, so we had to scrap the plans. We had a guy who had recorded MTV Unplugged for Kiss was recording it, so it was a gut-wrenching moment when we got the call from Alessandro to say I'm not allowed in and I'm on a plane home. These things happen, with visas. It's hard to get into the countries if the paperwork's not in the right order. So, but the show itself, we did it without him. Once we got our visas sorted, I spent 2 days in a lawyer's office in Chicago, which was not how I planned to spend my time in Chicago. But the show, it was a relief to be allowed to play, because at one point we thought we weren't able to do the show. But we went out there and did it as a 4-piece, and it was a killer show. It was 500 screaming American fans who'd never seen us, and it was great, very, very good. I think probably one of the first headline shows that we'd done, a good hour and a half we played for.
Moving into 2011, Paul, and you released your next album, which was Trinity, and with Trinity you lifted it to a different level. You had a couple of guest vocalists on this time. One of them surprised a lot of people when you managed to get James Labrie from Dream Theater to guest on your album.
Yep. James even surprised us, to be honest. That was it was a kind of an unbelievable moment, to be honest. Even when I'm thinking about it now, I'm kind of struggling to find the words. But we had a meeting with our record label at the time, and we said, right, we had really great guests like Tony and Pamela on The Second Coming. How can we go up a level? And James was one name that came from a record label more so than us. And we said, oh, that's a good idea. Do we know anybody that knows James? Because guys in Dream Theater aren't typical guys that you can just reach out and get a hold of. And the guy from the label said, I think he did an opera album with somebody in Germany. And I said, oh, okay, never heard of that. So, thanks to the internet, where would this band be without the internet? I just went to Google or Amazon or something, found the album first and foremost, saw the names of the people involved, and I think was it Facebook or something, MySpace was around then, I can't quite remember, but found the people involved in it, managed to track down the main guy within a couple of hours, and I emailed the guy, I told him who I was, who I worked with, etc. Lo and behold, he comes back straight away and says, oh, I'm a good friend of your producer's. I can't give you James's email, but I'll send him an email on your behalf. And I'm sitting in the house that night, about maybe 3 hours later in total, and my phone text went, and it was James Labrie, and he said, hi, it's James from Dream Theater, heard you're looking for me for a project, write me back, tell me what you've got in mind and see if I'm interested. And I'm going, that's a bit scary. And I sent off the email, and James responded saying, wow, love the stuff. I sent him a few samples, really like what I'm hearing. Gave me his phone number, could we schedule a call? And Mike and I went on and spoke to him for about an hour and a half. And at the end of the call he said, well guys, I do this with everybody, I always want to talk to you first, and I'm in. Just we'll talk about money later, but I'm in, let's do it. And that was just awesome. So we got him to do, he led the backing choir, so he would record first and we would stack above him for the backing vocals, and we did a duet, obviously, No Holy Man with Mike, and he was just a pleasure to work with from start to finish, Can't say any more than that.
On that album there's one of the characters on the sleeve, very fine looking picture of someone.
I believe Paul Anthony was the first person that pointed that out to me, that God might bear a resemblance to yourself, Tom. Yeah, and even the beard's is long.
One of the guys from Halloween was on that album as well.
That's right, Andy Derris, the singer. Now his involvement was quite weird because we never got to spoke to Andy at all throughout the whole process. I do some web building in the background, and with a friend from Sao Paulo in Brazil, we've done sites for other bands, so it happened to be through our producer Dennis, and the manager of Halloween, Costa, is the drummer in Dennis's band, and he said, would you mind doing me a site? I said, sure, no problem. This was for Michael Kiskey's new band, Unisonic, and I said, sure, and he said, anything I can do in return? I said, actually there is. Would you mind getting Andy to sing a song on the album? I said, sure, no bother. Send me the demo, send me what you want, the lyrics. And I'm expecting to hear a few weeks later from Andy, yeah, I'll get it done. I got an email one day and it was a link, Andy Derris, and it just had nothing written on it. It just had a link saying the name of the song, Black Widow, and I downloaded it and there was his vocals. And I'm going, wow, okay. And responded back, but never ever heard anything. Never to this day ever spoke to him or heard anything from him. But
no invoice?
Nope, no invoice, nope. But his vocals were great, absolutely great.
Another definite highlight that year was possibly your two biggest shows. You were invited to open for Dream Theater.
Yep.
Presumably James helped to put that together.
Yep, James personally invited us onto that tour, so that was an amazing opportunity that he gave us, and I remember he was quite upfront about it. He said, I'm putting my neck out here, guys, I'm offering you this, so can you deliver? And we said, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing that's going to stop us from going and doing the best, and that's what we did. The lead show, Leeds O2 Academy and Wolverhampton Civic, which were just packed to the rafters, as you can imagine. Squeaky bum time, but that's what you wanted, that's what you wanted to be there doing. And Dream Theater opened the world to us. There was no divas. We ate with them. We used the same crew. They were just could not say more than what they did for us. I don't know if every band gets that treatment from, but they treated us like royalty, and they came out and hang out with us in the last night of the tour, and it was great, wonderful.
And how well did you go down as an opening act? A Dream Theatre audience is a Dream Theatre audience.
Yeah, they are. They're tough, yeah. I mean, we deliberately picked, because we've got many facets to our music, we're quite diverse. We can be AOR one minute, we can be double bass, balls to the wall metal in the next, and all points in between. But we've got a lot of progressive music. I mean, Dream Theatre are one of our biggest influences, there's no hiding that. So we picked our set based around who we were playing to, and one of them being Jerusalem Sleeps, which is a 7-minute kind of, Middle Eastern progressive tune. We picked songs like that because we thought they'd go down, and we went down a storm. I think every night we sold so much merchandise, we made so many new fans, and it was a joy. Nothing but applause from the crowds.
Did you notice an upsurge in the website activity, Eden's Curse website activity after that?
Yeah, I mean, at that time we had Holy Man, the video came out, we did a cartoon type video, we publicised the song and then the tour. I mean, we really noticed lots of peaks in terms of numbers, people following the band, and posts and blabbermouth and things like that. We got a lot of traffic from that collaboration. After
that high, Michael leaves the band. You're looking for a new singer. Thoughts looking back at that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, isn't it? It's a journey really from start to finish, and it was a case of, Michael just couldn't join us on the journey anymore. He'd made his mind up that it wasn't for him, and he wanted to move on. We look back on everything that we did at that time with great pride, but it gave us an opportunity as a band to dust ourselves down and start the search for a new singer in the next chapter. We said as a band, what are we going to do? And it was unanimous. It was, it's a collective. It's all about Eden's Curse. It always has been and always will be. It's not about one person. So we decided, right, we can probably come out of this, in a better position. And it was a case of getting our heads down and searching for the right person, no matter how long it took. And maybe you'll allude to it later on, we had a false start there as well, but it took that time to find Nicola. And I think now, if you look where we are at this point in time, we've really reaped the benefits of that. So as I said, we look back to the past with Michael with great pride. We loved him being in the band and nobody wanted him to leave, but that chapter's closed, and it's now the next chapter.
You found the new singer in Serbia.
Yeah.
Now, you couldn't write it.
No. I must like a challenge, Tom. I think I like doing it the hard way. But, I think if you look at the setup of our group, there are no borders to our group. It started because I couldn't really find what I was looking for in Glasgow at the time. So, it doesn't matter to me where they're from. I think nowadays we learned, having Michael in the band, that it wasn't easy having a singer from America because of the cost and the financials and visas and everything. But having somebody closer to home, ideally I would want people in the UK, there's no doubt about it. But what I'm looking for, I'm sorry, but I've been unable to find it here. And we auditioned a lot of people, but the standards that we were after just weren't there, or were unknown to us. So finding Nick, we found him on YouTube, and again through Facebook we were able to email him and say, do you want to do an audition? And yep, straight away sent an audition back, and lo and behold, that was us a few months later. So there are no borders now.
Was there any problems with Nicola being Serbian? Getting him out of the country, getting visas, travel, etc.? Yeah,
first time we tried to do something, we had a bit of an issue. But he also studied in Hungary for 5 years at the uni there. So he's had visas from Hungary, he's got Hungarian grandparents as well. So very quickly into the process, Nick, once we'd gone through the process of applying for a visa in Serbia, it was denied the first time we tried to do an album recording here. It got through the second time with the right paperwork, but he said, I'm not going through that again, and he applied for his Hungarian passport, so he's now a fully paid up member of the EU, so that's made life so much easier.
Later that year, another change in the lineup in the band. You changed keyboard player.
Yeah, we eventually said cheerio to Alessandro Del Vecchio. He had gone on to good and great things with his career as a mixing engineer mostly for Frontiers Records. So he was the guy behind Revolution Saints and all these bands, etc. He produced all that and wrote it all. And we could see with Ali that his career was becoming so busy, and we were just so happy for him, that he was obviously going to have to sacrifice something. And to be fair to us, he came forward and said, guys, I'm just so busy for the next 2 years, you'd be better finding somebody new, and recommended Steve Williams, who we'd auditioned in the past. Steve only didn't get the job because of Alessandro's voice. In terms of keyboard ability, he was up there with him for sure. And that was just a natural thing. Steve and I are good mates and have followed each other's groups very closely, so we reached out to him and he accepted the invite, having come out of Power Quest that had disbanded after 10 years and joined.
Into 2013, and the next Eden's Curse album was Symphony of Sin.
Yep.
This time containing a song that's possibly gone on to be your most popular song so far.
Yeah, Evil and Divine for us, it surpassed unbelievably a lot of the James Labrie collaboration, which was a huge surprise. I don't know whether the video has got a lot to do with it. It's been quite successful for us. Our beautiful Polish friend Patty on it's been getting a lot of admirers and hits for us. But yeah, the song's grown arms and legs and just goes down a storm every time we play it. Unbreakable as well was the same. I mean, it wasn't released as a single, but it just takes on a life of its own with the fan base. And when we did the live album, as you'll probably allude to later on, we had recorded some videos and asked people, right, pick any song that you want to hear from the set, and Unbreakable won by a country mile, so that was quite a surprise. So yeah, great song for us.
Later that year, another highlight, you played Firefest at Nottingham Rock City. Good memories of that? Yeah,
it in all honesty, it could have been better for us in terms of the sound wasn't great on stage, and when we got off stage, people were saying the sound was terrible, and of course you've got no control over that as an artist. You can only go on and play, but in front of 2,000 people, and a fairly what you would call a partisan audience. I mean, they're all melodic rock fans, they know your material, there's plenty of singing along. It got better as the set went through, for sure, certainly from our aspects, but in many ways I wouldn't say it was a missed chance. It was an honour to play Firefest, and we'd love to go back and do anything like that again, but it was disappointment to come off stage and be told sound was pretty poor, but it was a good blood for Nicola, going in 2,000 people for his first show in an unknown language. I think he was like, whoa. Yeah, but that's what it's about. You've got to get these shows under your belt and get on, and we learn lessons every time we play. We take things from it all and try and how can we make it better? What have we done that's maybe contributed to that? So there are always lessons learned from these shows.
Moving into 2014, and early 2014 you went out on tour again in the UK, completed a full UK tour. Good memories of that. This time you were headlining. Yeah,
first headline tour. We had some awesome shows on that tour. Glasgow was a highlight, being a sellout. Swansea was a sellout as well. Wakefield and London for me were by far the best shows on the tour. Just in terms of everything going right, in terms of audience turning up, the participation, the sound, everything, tickets been sold, merchandise. Those two shows, in fact London capping it off, was the bands at that point in time. I remember a guy from AFM coming in saying that is the benchmark, and we felt it too. We'd gone through that week of touring and really were clicking on all cylinders. It was a fantastic show, and one that a city that we can't wait to get back and headline, next year with the new album. The tour also marked for us a change of drummer, as Pete Newdeck had moved on to concentrate on his own band Tainted Nation. His replacement was John Cleland from Edinburgh in Scotland, and John actually was the drummer of a band called Code of Silence, whom I'd written their debut album and produced it. And he's a great drummer and has added a lot to the group technically, and the tour for him was quite a task, actually, learning a full hour and a half set in something like the space of 4 or 5 weeks. He performed remarkably, and we look forward to hearing his contribution on the next album.
Towards the end of 2014, thoughts turned to a live album, and you thought to yourself, right, we're going to do a live album, and there was only one place to record it.
Yep, and unfortunately London was booked, but no, Glasgow, unanimous. I mean, no word of a lie, I've said this in interviews before, that we didn't even discuss where it was been recorded, and that's true. We just did not even, it wasn't even up for discussion. We just all knew where it was going to be, because this city has been so kind and so open, opening and welcoming us into their hearts, and every time we've played it's been something special, and we hope that continues. So that was a show and a half. You were there, Tom, you introduced us. It was an honour to be introduced on stage by yourself, but you could feel the magic in the air that night, I think, because we had so many people coming from abroad. We had people from Japan and all over Europe, all over the UK. We had a great band opening for us from Sweden, Colos-Saal. It was just a right proper old school rock night, and doing an old school proper double live album. It doesn't get better than that. That's the kind of stuff that I'd be lying in my bed at 12:13 listening to you on a Friday night in the Friday Rock Show dreaming about, and it's hard to believe I've done it and come through the other side of it. So I'm very humbled by it all, and it was an incredible show, and one that will live in my memory for a long time.
I remember on the night you just grabbed me and says, "Hey Tom, I'm going to go in and in case there's people here that don't know who we are, could you go on and introduce us?"
That's only so I didn't need to pay you.
So I did it, and went down and watched it, and there was I think I agree with you, there was a magic in the night, and you released it and called the album Live with the Curse.
Yep.
Live albums don't tend to sell as well as studio albums as a rule, but did it do well?
Yes, and it's still doing well for us. I mean, we're now at the point where just starting to get some of the sales figures through. I think the labels normally tell you it sells about 40%, but for us it's almost a best of Eden's Curse, but it also gives the fan base. We've got a lot of fans from America, we've got a lot of fans from Japan, etc., that have never seen the band play live. So for us it was an opportunity to say, listen, we're sorry we haven't had the opportunity to get out there. We will at some point, hopefully, but this should tide you by in the meantime. It gives people a chance to hear Nicola singing the older material, because we've been inundated with requests to re-record some of the older albums, and that's as much work as a brand new studio record, and we always like to move forward with the group. So again, we hope that appeases a lot of people's ideas in that department, and they can hear what we would typically go out and play in a night show.
Thomas, who does your artwork, excelled himself again with the artwork in the live album.
Yeah, I mean, we normally it's a kind of religious based or spiritual theme to the covers, but what we felt we wanted to do here was a play on the words Live with the Curse, and the first thing that came to my mind was a pharaoh's curse, and we thought, what about Eve as maybe Cleopatra, and Thomas, he just takes what I send him an email, and there's never any debate. Oh, that sounds cool, and he goes away and he does his thing, and you get the first draft back, and it's always, you see the wee attachment there, and you click on it, and you're like, oh my god, where did that come from? To take what you've got in your head here and bring it out visually, and the attention to detail here is just stunning. And I said, right, let's try and you want that whole Pharaoh Egyptian thing covered in the middle, you want Eve there, a lot of symbology around the top of her head. She's got the Eden's Curse symbol, we've got it on stands there, the amplifiers make it look like a gig almost, with a crowd and a stage and pillars having all the artwork on it. just stunning. I mean, I've got it blown up here on the wall, as you can see, and I could sit and look at it for hours. Incredible piece of work.
Was it Thomas or was it yourself that came up with the apple?
That's a good question. I think from the start it was probably myself who came up with that, and we've always said let's just have it in every cover. It'll always be there.
Do you ever get, as a band, criticism from fans or people just at gigs about the semi-nudity on stage?
Not on stage. Sometimes even some of the guys in the band don't like it, you know. I mean, I've had one or two complaints of that, and I've had one or two over the years, maybe emails about your covers are close to porn. Well, they're not. They're not. Essentially, the Garden of Eden, there wasn't much clothing going around there, there was no Matalan in the Garden of Eden. So, nah, not really. I mean, I think what you've got to do as an artist is just kind of block out. I think if you sit and read every comment, you could drive yourself crazy, I think if anybody that knows me truly will know where I'm coming from. I grew up in a religious household, and it's not a stress that Eden's Curse is not a religious band by any means, but I wouldn't put stuff on my covers. I mean, I even read somebody recently, I just fell across it on Amazon, saying that Trinity was, sacrilegious, and I'm thinking you've missed the point completely. It's not. It's actually highlighting, the Holy Trinity, and but people. To be honest, I don't really care. I know where I'm coming from, and I know the respect that I have and the message that I'm trying to. So it's not done for reasons of I want to look at it. It's always done respectfully and arty and classy, I hope.
2015, Eden's Curse managed to get over to Germany for a short tour. It was, I think, your first ever dates in Germany.
Yep, unbelievably, after 8 or 9 years on a German label with a German guitarist and a German keyboard player and a German bass producer. Yeah, and that, for us, it was a case of the right opportunity, because we've had offers to go out with bands from Germany before, but it's not been the right bill, or the circumstances have not been right. But this time, Freedom Call, great band, great bunch of people, and just were a pleasure to tour with, and those shows were very successful for us. So again, for us, it's almost like going back to 2009 when we opened for Strato. Okay, the audiences were not on the scale of what we did on that tour, but it was making your face known and your music known, and again, we sold very well in merchandise and performed well every night, so it's a starting point for us.
We now move into 2016, Paul, and it is the 10th anniversary of Eden's Curse. Presumably you've been beavering away in the studio writing some material, and we're going to have the old team back together for a new album this year? Yep,
it's going to be same old in regards to Dennis Ward at the producer's desk. It's going to be Thomas Everhard. Those guys are working already. They're at work on what we've given them. I'm not going to reveal any of the titles or anything yet. That comes in due course. But yeah, the album is written. We've actually started recording it. The guitars, all rhythm guitars, are now completed. I'm off to Germany in 2 weeks' time or so to record drums with John. We're going to Dennis Ward's place in the south of Germany. And then I'll have everybody, I've got vocals scheduled for March here with Nicola, and doing a video at the tail end of March, and we're scheduled for an autumn release with AFM, so they always want 3 to 4 months to promote the record, so by the time we're all wrapped up, the promo machine starts, and then getting everything ready for iTunes, so it's a little bit of wait, but that's what happens in the music business nowadays. We're very excited. If people liked Symphony of Sin, I think they're going to love the 5th album. It's got all the hallmarks of what we've done in the past, and again, as with each record, there's a different flavour there. Nicola's written on this one. We've had contributions from Steve as well, and I would say at this point in time our most heaviest and progressive record, and before people go, oh god, it's heavy is Black Widow type heavy for Eden's Curse, one of our heavier songs, but definitely some epic songs on there.
I A personal highlight for you last year, Paul. You've always played Warwick bass guitar, and you were invited over to the Warwick factory.
Yep.
And you met some heroes.
Didn't half, yeah. I had a chance to sit down with guys like Billy Sheehan and Stu Ham and Dave Ellefson from Megadeth, and that was just outstanding. I mean, I've been with Warwick as an artist since 1997. That was the first time I'd gone to the factory, and again that stemmed from the German tour. They loaned me a rig for the German tour, and I dealt with the CEO directly on that transaction. So they as an artist, I get a loaner rig for the tour. So I think because I'd managed to take care of it and send it back in one piece, they must have thought, that guy's a good guy. And lo and behold, it was a few weeks later I got an invite, and it was all expenses paid, a lot, flights picked up at the airport, shared the car with a whole load of stars, guys from Nightwish, all of these guys, and it was awesome, just an unbelievable experience. I was scared to play any bass that weekend because the talent was just ridiculous. It was sitting back watching guys jamming and unbelievable. But I did get a good story with that. I was kicking about in the kind of after dinner, they have a club down there, they've got their own club, they've got a huge hall in fact, where it's like a theatre almost, and they put bands on, but they've got a small club with a bar, so in the factory grounds. And I'm sitting talking to a guy, an American guy from LA, who plays guitar, excellent guitar player, Phil was his name, and he played with a guy called Matt Starr, I think his name was, on drums, and Rex Brown came up from Pantera, Billy Sheehan came up, host of other guys come up, big jam session. And I'm saying to the guy, brilliant band, tight as anything, they were fantastic, did a whole load of Purple covers, etc., all different stuff, Zeppelin, and he sung, Phil himself sung. And I said to him, what's the band called? I can't remember the name of the band that he was saying. And he says, any other gigs that you do, Phil? He says, yeah, playing Bon Jovi. It was Phil X, and I was like, okay, right. So he replaced Richie Sambora in Bon Jovi, and unbelievable guitar player. And I said, so what's that gig like? And he says, dude, it's everything you imagine. It's all stadiums and private limos and private jets. And I said, oh, good.
Did you pass over a card?
No, I didn't.
Bass players are like drummers in a way, Paul. The singer gets all the accolades. The lead guitarist gets all
the chicks.
Rhythm guitarists, most people don't even know what a rhythm guitarist is, unless you're Malcolm Young, greatest rhythm guitarist of all time, obviously. But when it comes to bass players and drummers, they tend to be revered by other bass players and other drummers, more so than singers and lead guitarists. So give me your top 3 bass players of all time.
Oh, okay, now I would go for 3 people that influenced me. I think that's probably what most people would say. It might not be what everybody out there says technically, but who influenced me? One guy in the main was the bass player. The first bass player from Thunder was a guy called Mark Luckhurst, Snake Luckhurst, and that's when I started playing bass at that time. So his playing, particularly the way that he held it in the pocket, but also was able to do a lot of runs and fit a lot of runs and little nuances into the bass playing, stuck out like a sore thumb to me, and really made me think, wow, okay, so you don't just need to stay on the note, and I really listened very acutely to his playing, and could probably play the first 2 Thunder albums entirely on the bass. It was that much. So him. The second guy would be Eddie Jackson from Queensryche, absolutely down to the point where I just fell in love with his playing style and his sound. I think if you listen to Eden's Curse's music, I think that's quite evident that I like Queensryche, because of that and those bass kind of roots that he plays. And the third guy, probably from a bass playing and a songwriting capacity, I would say Kip Winger. I was a huge fan of Winger, but loved what Kip does as well. So I mean, we're not talking, as much as I think John Myung and Billy Sheehan and Stu Ham are incredible players, and Steve Harris, who I grew up adoring. Andy Fraser was another one that from Free, that when I heard him, I was like, oh my god. But those were the guys for me. I mean, I'm more of a a Bob Daisley, that type of bass player, you know, a Geezer Butler. I'm an old-fashioned bass player in that regards, but guys like Luckhurst and Eddie Jackson just made me think, okay, there's more to it than that as well. I'm trying to be have my own voice as well, but be an amalgamation of those styles. So that's definitely my top 3.
You've told us that the new album is going to be out in the autumn. We'll look forward to that. But what else is in store for Eden's Curse in 2016?
Yep, well, we are hoping it's going to be a busy year for us. So autumn, once we basically hand the record over to the label, we'll start putting together our plans for touring. So where that's going to be at this point in time, I don't know. I mean, we've got offers for Japan and things that we want to look at. So certainly a UK tour will be definitely happening. I don't know if it'll be this year. We hope it will be, but we'll try and get that on the table, and some dates abroad, and we'll start looking at the festivals for probably a year after. We're maybe not going to do this year because of being in the studio and commitments that we've got. But yeah, we've actually got a couple of secret projects in the background. So once we finish the album, we've got 2 projects that we are going to start working on straight away as well, and that will come to light in 2017. So we've got an awful lot of work, and we're hoping that 2016-17 will be our busiest period yet, especially on the road.
The biggest festival, certainly in the UK is concerned, rock-wise, is the Download Festival, which takes place in June every year. Some people might be surprised that Eden's Curse have never played the Download Festival.
Well, again, it's something that we've tried. We'd absolutely love to do it, but never been fortunate enough to succeed in getting an offer or anything. We try every year through several people that work for us and agents. So if Mr. Copping's watching us, please give us a call. But it would be a dream come true to play Download, absolutely.
Any final words for the fans?
Yeah, I think, as always, just thank you to everybody for your support over the 10 years. Without you guys, we would be nowhere. I mean, I would be still a guy sitting in a bedroom in Bishopton with an acoustic guitar writing a handful of songs. So much gratitude to you guys out there for buying our records, coming to the shows, writing us emails, following us on Facebook. It all keeps us going. What you don't see behind all of the rubbish of the records and the tours is a lot of hard work. And I mean, when I started this band, I had black hair and a full head of it. Look at me now. Look what you've done to me. But thank you in all seriousness. We think 2016 is going to be one that you guys are going to love just as much as we are. So again, thank you very much, and stay cursed.
Ladies and gentlemen, hands together for Paul Logue from Eden's Curse.
Thank you, Tom. Pleasure. Cheers, mate.